Hi, greetings to all. First of all, I thank you for all those who have taken this time to participate in this session. So, this is going to be a Six Sigma in property and facility management. So, as I promised, today we will be looking at a very important subject which is called the SIPOC. So, here I have just showcased you a small Excel sheet which has got the SIPOC table. So, as you all know, in Six Sigma, it starts from the basic design, and the design will create every step by step process to control the variations. So, there are two main important aspects in Six Sigma. One is making your customer happy. That means that whatever the customer is asking, you have to do. A second thing is reduction in variation, thus by reduction in cost control or reduction in the cost. So, for every aspect of what a client requires, you need a process. So, what I am showing is the just start of the Six Sigma. It is a design mapping. So, it is going to show you how to create a process and how what is the inputs and outputs we need to go give, and who are our customers, and how to find out the time spent for building a process, how to reduce time, what is a tag time and what is a valuable time. All those things we are going to discuss in this video. So here what I'm going to start is the how to just create a basic process. So as you see, there are five important aspects, that is supplier, inputs, process, outputs and customer. So whenever you create a process, so this is the method you need to follow. So start with the center point, which is creating a process. So here you can schedule, create a process. Then probably for that process, you can do a resource allocation. Then there is a process for inspection and assessment. Then there's a process for maintenance and execution. And there's a process for documentation and follow-up of review. So, being the center point is the process. As you see on the left hand side, you got the inputs, and on the right hand side, you got the outputs. So, the inputs is just talking about the process for this particular process. For example, schedule creation. The input is maintenance of schedule, and for resource allocation, that could be a different input. So, for every single process, there is an input which is being given and there is an output. For example, for this particular creation of the process, you might find out there is a output. Probably you might have a maintained equipment, you have a maintenance report, you have asset record, you have improvement equipment reliability and reduced downtime. This is all what is part of output. And the suppliers could be equipment and manufacturers, the maintenance staff, part suppliers, external contractors and software providers. And finally, who are your customers? Who are the customers who are willing to take part of this process? So probably this is a building occupant, this is a facility owner, and operation management. So this is a sort of a clarity in how a process is made. And of course, this is not an in-depth process. It is not something like a chart where you will go in depth of what a process. This is just giving you a summary of a process. And basically, for every process you follow at your property or a facility, should have the summary of the property of this process, so that you will have the inputs and outputs ready, and you know who's your customer and your suppliers. So here is the important aspect of that what we discuss here in the SIPOC. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you a process, how to create a summary of a process on something like a pump repairs, which you normally do it in your facility or your property. So I know that most of the time or many times the pumps are getting repaired, and you should have a process how to fix the pump as quick as possible. Okay, so now I'm going to this particular pump repairs. As you see, This is something I have created. If you see, I've just put a process. This is a generic process which normally most of the companies follow. But if you have a different process, I'm okay with you guys that you can change the process as required. But let us fix with what's the process right here so that you will have a better understanding how to create an input, right? Yeah. So here, very important aspect here, what I wanted to say is a process. Whenever you make a process, it should it should be a value to your customer. Okay, it should create a value to a customer. For example, this particular process where the pump has to be repaired, it creates a value to the customer because the customer knows that the pump has to be repaired and to be fixed at a certain time, so that he is looking to ensure that this process will make his facility run smoothly 24 bar 7 without any problem because the pumps are coming on time. Okay, so here I am just starting with a process called, whenever there is a problem with the pumps, first what you do is you raise a purchase request for giving a purchase order so that the vendor will be able to do the job. The second to that is, once the PO, the purchase order is released, then you need to contact the vendor. Boss, you have to say that your purchase order is released, please come and do the work. Normally it happens automatically from the procurement, but still if you think this process or this activity is a critical, then it's suggested you go and reach the vendor. The third thing is about the vendor receives the purchase order and he inspects the equipment at your premises and he removes the asset. And the fourth step is he does the rewinding, or probably there's some other problem in the equipment. He does the work and he comes back and he refix the machine. And final, what you do, you buy as a facility, as a property manager, you check the equipment, whether the equipment is right, it is working well, and sign off your WCC, which is nothing but the work completion certificate. So this is my process. This is my process which I'm going to follow. So I'm very clear what I'm going to do as a process whenever the pump get repaired. I mean the pump has a repair. So for this particular each event or each frame, okay, I have some input. For example, to raise a purchase request, I need to find an appropriate vendor and get a cost estimate so that it will be easy for me to raise the purchase request. And going to the next, the for contacting the vendor for after the PO is released, you probably need a copy of the purchase order and you need the BOQ and the validity of the purchase order. Third thing, the vendor comes to your place and inspects. So what all you need? You need a vendor contact details. You need an asset detail so that you know which equipment or which pump is going to take out from your facility. And next, you also need a gate pass, right? That is the input is required. And the fifth is vendor does the rewinding and he fixes the machine. So definitely you need to do an input of vendor follow-up and asset details so that he's fixed. And finally, you need a checklist and a WCC copy as an input so that you can sign the WCC copy and you can do a checklist of whether all the equipments and the parameters are checked. Say for example, the voltage or the watts of the equipment, everything is checked and the process is over. This is the input. So now going to the output. For the output, for this particular area, the first step, the purchase request, the output is the purchase order copy is released. And second, for the contact the vendor, when we need the vendor contact and inspection, readiness of the repairs, vendor does the rewinding, so asset is ready to operate, and finally asset is in working condition. So if you see, it starts from PO copy to the asset to the working condition. That is my output. And who's my customer? Definitely is the building occupant who is asking me to ensure that there is no downtime in his machine, and probably the facility owner and the operation management team. Okay, this is the logic. And here basically, here there are type of suppliers. Could be the equipment supplier, it could be the maintenance staff, it could be the part suppliers, it could be the external contractors, and it could be some software providers, because there are some vendors who work under the RFQ process, or they work under a process of systematic, so that a software is used. So this is the complete process of supplier input, process, output, and customer, which is nothing but SIPOC. Okay. So next, coming back, is a very important aspect. This one. So this I am going to give how many days it is going to take for each step to complete. For example, from purchase order to the PO copy. If you see this two part, purchase order is my process and my output is PO copy, and approximate time I take is 30 days. So once my purchase order is done, I take minimum 2 days or maximum 2 days to contact the vendor. And next, what I'm doing is I take another 2 days for the vendor to do and does the assessment. And the vendor takes the machine out, and he takes 5 days to get the machine repaired or rewinding or whatever it is. And finally, he fixes it, and the equipment is ready, and in the same day the work completion certificate is done. So if you see, it starts from day one. It takes 30 plus 2 plus 2 plus 5, so overall it takes 40 days. Okay, and that is called the cycle time. The cycle time represents how many days since the equipment got failed, and the process has started to the end of the process. It is called the cycle time. And here we discussed already, does this process brings value to the customer? So here, is the purchase order raising a purchase, is there any value? I don't think so. Is the vendor getting the PO? No, there is no value. Inspection assessment of the vendor to remove the asset? Yes, there is no, there is no value to a customer. The last 2 points, yes, of course, because the vendor comes and fix the machine, and that is the time the client wants the machine to be intact. And finally, the equipment is ready, so he physically sees. So basically, these two steps, right? These two steps are the steps where I have some value. I add value to the customer. Okay, so I can see this 6 days is my actual valuable time, and the remaining 34 days has got no value for the customer. Okay, right. So but the customer, as you see, my cycle time, it takes 40 days. My cycle time takes 40 days. But my what is a tag time? Is a tag time is what the customer wants. What does the customer wants? So here the customer says, or the client says, no, I don't want 40 days for a pump to get fixed. I need only 25 days for the pump to be fixed. So what do I do is I want to reduce this 40 into 25. Then I create a bottleneck process where I'm saying that where is my process is actually delayed. As you see, here, this particular 30 days is my bottleneck. 30 days is my bottleneck. So I think I need to work on this too, because 30 is the biggest number here, and this 5 days is my biggest number here. So I have to work this as a bottleneck, and here starts my Kaizen, because I will work only when there is a bottleneck. Then I will create a Kaizen process, which is nothing but a continuous improvement process, so that I can reduce this time from 30 to maybe 20 days, and this time from 5 to 3 days, so that for, let us say, if I am able to create this, say for example 20, and this probably to 3 days, probably you can get, yeah, so you can probably reduce to another 15 days. So this is what is a SIPOC. So we will discuss a little bit more in detail when we get into a discussion, when we get into the workshop model. And I hope this is helpful to you. Thank you and have a nice day. Let us meet as soon as possible. Thank you very much.